Hello and welcome to 2026. So if you're viewing this, you are part of my free newsletter, or you just happen to have come past on YouTube. So welcome. Every first Friday of the month, a new freebie drops in the newsletter. It is only available in my newsletter, which is on my website, belindabasson.com. And this time I thought, because I like to get organized at the beginning of the year, it somehow seems to keep me a little more organized throughout the year. And I thought I would create a cover for a monthly diary, basically. And you can print as many of these as you like. You can make the entire year up front, probably the better way to do it. And what I do is I go online and I find calendars. There's lots of free calendars out there. You've got the one where you've got the whole year to view, and then one that I've printed out where I've got 6 months and 6 months. And this normally sits in front of me on my behind my computer screen. But when I need more detailed planning, I like a week to view, and I like my columns to go down because I have the time at the top and the evening, morning to evening. And I just find, for me, this is the best way to plan my week. I have always used a week to view with the columns going down. Ever since I ran my art studio in South Africa, my dad gave me a diary when I first started, and it was like this. And a lot of diaries have their days long and skinny going this way, and there isn't enough place to actually plan your day. So this is something that I now struggle to find. So I thought, well, if I'm struggling to find it and I find it such a useful tool, well, I'm going to recreate something that works for me and give it to you. Why not? And it's blank, so you can use it for years to come. It's not specifically for the year 2026, only the cover is. And in keeping with the theme that I've been doing with all my freebies mostly, I'm sticking to the denim and the embroidery. What I have done is I have done one page with the 5x7 fold lines. So in other words, you cut that out, and when you folded it, you will have a 7" by 5" page. Then what I've done, if you're doing individual months, is for the back of it, and the instructions are here. This page is your cutting guide to stack on top when cutting all the pages. So you would pile all your pages together, use a craft knife and ruler, and just cut all of them, because the next ones don't have that line. On the back of this one, it is print back to back with the first page, aka that one with the line. You don't have to print this page. I just thought it would be nice when you fold your document, you will end up with this month's goals on the front, so you'll be able to plan out what you want to achieve. On the back, you will have notes. And if you're then going to be keeping them all in one place, you can then have this month's notes against the next month's planning. So that was my ultimate goal with this particular design. And then we have the page that is just without any border, and it says print back to back with itself twice. So in other words, you're going to land up with 2 pages that are printed back to back like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay them on top of each other, and we're going to cut them out. So when printing this freebie, you have various options. You can either just print it as it is and cut it down, or we have the second page, which is exactly the same but with no border to cut along. And for this one, you'll see there is a note at the bottom that says print back to back with itself twice. And that is if you are making 1 month to view, because if you print the first page with the outline, this one twice back to back, so that will give you 4 pages, and then this one is print back to back with the first page, in other words this one, and that will give you 5 weeks to view, and that should cover pretty much every option in the monthly calendars. So because not every month obviously starts on a Monday, some will start on a Sunday, for example, and then, well, you've got a whole week to view with nothing, and then Sunday. Then, of course, we have our cover, and I have given you an inside cover so that you can print these back to back on thicker cardstock. And then, of course, we have the last page, which is not for printing, it's merely for instructional purposes. So I'm going to start off by printing the cover, and I need to then change my settings. So I'm going to go with current page, and I'm going to just check my property settings. I've got it on rear paper feeder. I've got it on velvet fine art, which is gorgeous but incredibly time consuming. So I'm going to go with photo paper glossy. And okay, this will give me quite a dark output, but that's what I'm looking for. And I'm going to go to print. Next, we are going to print the inside cover, and I flipped my paper over, so I want current page and go to print. Print the inside pages. I am going to change my property settings because now I need the auto cassette, and I'm going to change it to plain paper and say okay. And I'm going to do the current page, and it depends on how many months you're wanting to do. I'm just going to do one for now, so I'm going to print this page. Next, we're going to do the following page. So I've already scrolled down, and so I'm going to say current page, so that loses the border. And I can tell it to print quite a few, so or I can just print one at a time. But I'm going to go up to copies, and I'm going to ask it to print 2 and go to print. To print the other side of the page, I'm going to say current page, and I'm going to change my properties from auto to rear paper feeder and press OK and change it to 2 copies, and off we go to print. Having scrolled down to this page, I am now going to do the same thing, having put my first page that you can see here with the line around it in the paper feeder, and I'm only needing 1 copy, and I'm going to go to print. I've got my mini mat just because it's easier to turn the whole mat. I like to work at an angle so that I can see what I'm doing. I just find it easier than working at like the 90 degrees to myself. I'm going to line up my ruler on top, so I've got all my pages stacked, and I'm going to just score a few times until I am through the 3 pages. So it's not a lot, and I've just used normal copy paper for this. So now I can feel I'm right the way through. I'm going to just turn my whole mat because, well, that's easier than trying to line up the papers again. I guess you could staple them or something on the outside if you have to keep picking up the pages and turning them if your mat is too big to turn. Some people have a mat that covers the whole desk. So what I would do then is I would actually just staple on both sides, because then you're cutting out the middle and it won't move. So there's always more ways than one to do something, and if you have your own way that works, go for it. I'm merely making suggestions. And I do find that no matter how carefully I line up my paper in my printer, because of how a printer functions, you know, it's got those little wheels that turn and pull the paper through, it's never completely accurate. So you'll find that maybe some of your pages below are not going to be perfectly aligned within this space, but at least they will line up with each other. I mean, my printer has done a pretty good job of lining everything up, so that looks fine. That's perfect. Next up, we're going to cut the cover. And when I design my back-to-back printables like this, there is always a larger gap on the odd page size than on the even page size, and that is because of the fact that printers do not pull things through accurately. So I always allow the second page to be bigger in the hopes that there won't be a white gap on the other side of this page. So I'm always cutting on the side that has the larger gap between my logo and the image, because then that will give you the finished size when it's folded of a 5x7 cover. And I have printed on matte double-sided photo paper. So a lot of photo paper is just single-sided. Obviously the glossy photo paper, you can see which side is to be printed on because, well, it's glossy on that side. So the matte photo paper, I find for using things like this that you're going to be handling, works a lot better. So there we go, you can see all the way around a little bit of blue. And I have done the cover on the thicker cardstock. So this is 62 pounds or 230 GSM. I used the Koala brand double-sided matte photo paper. No, I don't get any sponsorship for this. It just happens to be what I use. And I get a lot of questions about that, so I thought I would just show you. And now what I'm going to do is literally just line it up and fold. I'm not going to score it or anything. This paper folds particularly well, doesn't need scoring, doesn't crack. And there we have our cover. So there are two ways of handling the insides. So this one being the top one, it is going to be the outside one, and I'm literally again just folding them in half. I guess you could fold the whole lot together. These two were printed together and they're identical, so that one I can just fold. Hopefully it'll fold on the line. That's the idea. So this is going to be my outside. And now we can either staple this together as a little month on its own, or we can pop it in and then use some elastic. So I've got, this is left over from something else. I am gonna just snip that off, and I'm gonna run this through the middle. This is what I call shoestring elastic, because it is the round one. And you need it tight enough so that it's not going to bend your book. Not so, tight enough to hold your insides in place. Come here. But not so tight that it's going to bend your book. So I'm going to just pull with a little bit of strength and tie a double knot. There we go. So now I can just trim off the excess, so we don't have that flapping about. I guess you could put pretty things on there, you could put beads, you could put all sorts, but this just allows me to then have 1 month at a time that I would just slip in and slide out. So this then allows me to go ahead, take my year to view, which is now somewhere. Well, let's use that one for example, or you could use the year to view. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write January, and January starts on a Thursday. So this is why we have 5 weeks, because we're going to start on a Thursday and we are going to end on a Saturday. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks to view, and so every month you will need at least 5. Some months you will only need 4, but that's just how it rolls. And at the end, of course, you have your notes, so you can then have your next month starting. So you could do a few months and have a few months in here, and that would work fine. I'm just going to work with 1 month at a time to view in mine, because that's what I need. But I will prep the rest of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and print enough for an entire year, and sit and do the boring job of writing up all the dates. And then I will be able to just slot them in here. So what I would probably do is, in preparation, I will staple these together. So now there are 2 ways you can do that. You can either use a normal stapler, which you open up and use together with a mat. So I have a very thick foam mat. It's like a base for a thong or flip-flop, fit-flop, whatever you call those shoes that have the thing that goes between your big toe. It's the same sort of foam base. So that's what I use to staple on. So what I normally do is turn it upside down and have the staple on the inside. But because this is now going against my cover, I think this time I'm actually going to have the staples on the inside going out. So I have marked my stapler with a little line as to where the staple comes out, because the staple doesn't come out right at the front, it comes out slightly further back. So then I'm able to line that up with my fold in the middle and make sure it's straight, and you push it through, and then of course you have to turn it over and use a flat head screwdriver, which I suppose you could use any tool really, but you really just need to flatten that down and flatten that down. And why I want to do this time on the outside is because if it's going to be in the cover, then at least here I'm not going to hurt myself. So that is the easier way to do it. If you have one of these, so this is something that some people might have, it's a magnetic place your stapler anywhere on the page thing. What you need to do is put this, you need to work out where it's going to staple, and put this underneath and put that on top. And I actually find when you're trying to do something so accurate, this isn't always the easiest way to do it. So I actually find this a more accurate way. I got very excited when I found this in my drawer the other day, but it really only works for things that aren't quite so accurate. So there we go, line that one up, pop it through. And now we have our month. So I will go ahead and I'm going to do this to the other 11 months, and then I'll just be able to write them up easily. They won't all fall apart, and when I'm ready to slot them in, I can do that. So you could have 2 elastics in here and have 2 months running at a time so that you can work ahead if you need to. But yeah, that's the freebie for the month of January 2026.